Hi everybody, this is Amber Bell from Training Dynamo. What is your Microsoft Dynamics GP learning style? Do you prefer live classes? Or maybe you'd like to kick back and read the manual? How about the option to sit at your desk and learn GP at your own pace at the time that works best for you? Why limit your choices? Visit trainingdynamo.com. We have Microsoft Dynamics GP workbooks, online self-paced training, and many upcoming workshops, boot camps, webinars, and more. Right now you can use code DynamicsCon to save 40% on GP workbooks. Visit trainingdynamo.com for more information.
Please welcome our next speaker, Amber Bell, Training Dynamo owner. Today, she will be presenting GP User to GP Superhero. Please stick around after Amber's session for a live Q&A.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to my session. My name is Amber Bell from Training Dynamo. Today's session is called GP User to GP Superhero. I'm excited to include this in this year's DynamicsCon. I know having Microsoft Dynamics GP is something I'm very excited that it's been added to both DynamicsCon, and the main GP user group has been added to the DUG website. So make sure you check that out. I wanted to say thank you so much to all of the folks over at DUG and the folks at DynamicsCon for hosting the event. It's really exciting to be able to share things with people from all over the world that I love about using Microsoft Dynamics GP. I wanted to give you guys a little information about who I am. My name is Amber Bell. My company is Training Dynamo, and really my focus has been for over 20 years training people on how to use Microsoft Dynamics GP. I've written books about using GP, and I've recorded videos that are on YouTube, and I'm now a DUG Scale Up instructor. So make sure and check that out if you haven't had an opportunity. If you want more information, my website is available. I'm on LinkedIn. You can go to trainingdynamo.com, all kinds of ways to learn about GP that I try to share with the community. So thank you guys so much for voting for me. As we're doing our session, if you think of questions, type them into the chat. I'll be able to see them. And then at the end of the session, we're going to have a live Q&A. So as they come up, type them in there, and then that way I'll know what to cover during the Q&A. If you have comments as well, let me know. I know I talk fast, but we have a lot to cover. I'm going to try to slow down on the parts that are very important. And the good news is, because this is an event you can watch again and again, you can always pause, try it on your computer, and make sure you learn something that you can use when you're done with this session. So thank you again so much for voting for me and joining, and here we go. So today what we're going to do is talk about using different tools that are part of Microsoft Dynamics GP. And a lot of them can be used really well with Microsoft Office tools. So that's some of my focus today, is how to use those tools to become a GP superhero. So you may know how to do things like emailing out invoices or POs or things like that, but sometimes you need to send something out, especially nowadays with what happened the last year or so. You're trying to simplify paying your vendors. Stamps are $1 million. You're working from home. There's all these different reasons. But trying to get that information from your vendors and then trying to get that information back into GP can be very difficult. So we're going to solve that problem today and make you into a GP superhero in the process. So the first thing we're going to talk about is, can you use GP to send out a mass email? Now, there are third-party tools to do that. There's this and that and the other to do that. But let's use what you own and make it something that works really easily. So we're going to use Mail Merge from Microsoft Office, and we're going to talk about how to create templates and then get those things out to your vendors so that you can set them up for ACH or EFT payments. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go into Microsoft Word. So I have Microsoft Word and I have a document. I'm going to go ahead and open that up. So in here, we're going to go ahead and pull up my ACH authorization. I always tell people it's like if you watch a cooking show, they have the cake already ready. So I've been spending time practicing with these, but during a demo, we'll make sure it works and smoothly for you guys to see what it looks like to do this. We're going to open up Microsoft Word. This doesn't need the latest and greatest version of Word, but it does work with Office 365, which is what I'm using. So we're going to go ahead and open. Now, this document, I'm going to go ahead and connect it with my file, which is going to be, see, now I bookmarked it. This is a tip for you if you're going to do a session. It's always good to bookmark your sessions up in your quick access. So we're going to do my EFT email list. Okay. Now, I had set this up before, so it already had connections, but I'm going to show you what I did and how I did it, because you may have never done this before. Honestly, I've done mail merges for a million years, but it wasn't until a couple of years ago that I realized you can mail merge right into Outlook. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into here and we're going to say mailings up at the top. So I'm going to hit mailings and we're going to select recipients. Now mine behind the scenes already connected because I've saved it, but we're going to go ahead and say use an existing list. And I typically work in Excel. Now, for me, what I did was I exported from GP and I just put my same email address over and over and over into this, into the Excel, because I wasn't going to email random people this request. You could use an email address that you have in GP by including that column. I'll show you that in a couple slides. Or maybe your email addresses are outside of GP. You could just connect those using Excel or type them into the spreadsheet. Let me show you what it looks like. We're going to pull up that spreadsheet that we just did, and I'm going to pull this up. And it is my EFT email list. And go ahead and hit open. Now, when I do that, we pick the tab that has the data. And then here's my request that I'm going to send out. And you notice that it's 2 pages. So on here, I've got my request. And what I did was in different places, I just replaced the fields with fields from that list. Now, the list itself had a column for email, and that's important. You want the email address as one of your columns. I don't need to include it in the printed letter and the second page of the letter. I don't need it either place, but I need it in that file. What I'm going to do is go ahead and, like I said, replace that. And this is going to send them an authorization, and then they can print it out. They can write on it. They can scan it. They can send it back. So I'm making it a lot easier for myself and for my vendor, because they're going to have a lot of things pre-filled. But we're going to say finish and merge. If you're like me, for years and years, I've done edit individual documents or print documents. But what you can do is say send. And then I can send it as an email as the column. That's the column it's going to use. So it found that column off of my spreadsheet. I type in a subject line, format as an HTML, or you could do it as an attachment. I'd like an HTML, and we're going to click OK. So that's going to go ahead, and in the background that's running. It's sending out some of those emails, and I'll show you guys what that looks like. So let me go ahead and pull up my Office Outlook, and I will show you what that looks like. I do have a screenshot that shows you what it looks like in the final. So what you end up getting, actually, we'll just use this as the sample. So if we go into Outlook, what is really nice, because I made this into having a page break, it actually would print as 2 pages for my vendor, and they would be able to print this out, fill it out, and send it back in. But see how professional and how nice that looks? I didn't do anything extra, anything crazy, but I used Microsoft Office along with Microsoft Dynamics GP, because my Microsoft Dynamics GP could include that vendor information. So if you wanted to do that list and you wanted to include the vendor's email address that you're storing and saving in Microsoft Dynamics GP, then what you would want to do is to use SmartList Designer or SmartList Builder and include the table under company internet addresses. So company internet addresses, it's not under purchasing, it's under company internet address. So what I did in here was I went and I said company internet addresses in Designer, and I included that. Now, I have a lot of tips and tricks on my website and on YouTube that are all about using Designer and all about using Builder and how to do security. But just for time's sake today, I'm just showing you how that if you had it in design, if you have it in Microsoft Dynamics GP, use it from there. Don't retype the list. Use Designer, use Builder, get that email address. But if you don't have it, you can use, export it from your CRM, from SharePoint, from an email list you have, or Excel spreadsheet you have, and then you can include that as a column. But using that mail merge lets you do those mass emails out. Now, let's say that we've sent this out. Can we use it for something else? You can also use this to email customer reminders. So what I did was I also set up a list, and I'll show you what this looks like. I don't have the screenshot of the final product, but you guys have a good imagination. But I just want you to see, and this would work for customers as well. So again, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to connect this to my same location, but it's going to be my customer list. So in here, I have my past due customers as an Excel spreadsheet. I'll open and show you that spreadsheet because I think it's going to be pretty interesting. So if we come in, and I'll merge this into printed documents, you can use your imagination and went out in an email. But if we take a look at this, I think it's going to tell me that it's locked. We'll open it and read only. We'll see what it does. But we'll go ahead and merge that out. So in my columns, I used the standard SmartList. So inside of SmartList, I was able to pull this information out. So for my vendors, I might want to send that information out by going under my vendor addresses and creating a SmartList that way. When it comes to doing my customers, I'm going to go into SmartList and I am going to pull up my customers. So let's go ahead and pull that up. If you want to use data from inside of GP, one of the easiest ways to get that data out is to use SmartList. You can use standard SmartLists for a lot of the things I'm doing today. So for example, if I go under sales and I go under customers, there's a built-in SmartList called past due customers. So we're going to look for that one here. That one is set to automatically filter to just customers that are past due. But the reason I'm using that is that it automatically had my aging buckets. What I did was I modified that by not hitting modify. I hit columns and I took out the columns that I didn't need. So hit columns. And we're just going to take out the columns we don't need. So I'm not using these extra aging buckets, and we're going to hit remove. And then we could add extra columns. So my final report that I did, I'm going to show you what that looks like. I would end up creating that with date of last payment and amount of last payment. So let's take a look and I'll show you what that looks like. We're going to open up Excel and we'll just go ahead and browse and find that. And again, it might give me a little pop-up that it's in use, but we're going to do read only because I just want you guys to see the columns. So simply what I did was I just added some extra columns in SmartList. So what I added was I added the last aged, that was already there, but that way I knew if it had been aged. I added the last payment date. So in SmartList, you can add that column, not even using Designer or Builder. It's just automatically there. And I put the last payment amount. So let's see what happens over in Word. We're going to merge it just to a Word document because I don't want to deal with having to pop up Word. And we're going to go back under mailings and we're going to say merge. And we're going to edit individual documents and we'll say, okay. So this will take a second, hopefully not 1,000 years, but we'll see it run. I should have maybe just said 10 records, but that's Amber Bell for you doing a bunch of things. So now we can see. What I liked about this is I could say out to them, we have not received a payment since 4/29. Now my test company, this is 2027. And as of today, you owe this amount. And then I have a little screenshot or a little information about their past due. I did all of that with standard GP. I did that with Microsoft Word by just using that mail merge. So what I want you to see is that if you're sitting here and you go, well, I don't do a lot of this in payables. I don't do a lot in receivables. I work with employees. You can do different things for employee announcements or requests or things like that. Vendor 1099 information. So it's a lot of ways that this can solve things for you. Next thing we're going to talk about is macros. So what macros are is pre-recorded clicks inside of GP, but they also work in other Microsoft Office tools. One of the ways that I like to use macros is a simple way. So if I went into Microsoft Dynamics GP, and we're going to close this, and I am going to say that I want to do a bank transfer. So every time I do a bank transfer from my operating over to my payroll account, I come in and I find the window and I'm clicking, and I've got to find it and I've got to do that. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to make sure I don't have any other windows open. And I'm going to record a quick macro for opening and filling that window out. And then we're going to talk about some cool things we can do with macros. So hopefully go ahead and close all this. And we're going to go in here and go Microsoft Dynamics GP Tools, Macro, Record. Now, the reason I'm showing you this way is that it also teaches you the keyboard shortcut to record those macros. So if you notice right on the screen, it says Alt F8. So if I hit Alt F8, I don't have to have that up. And we're going to save this into my same folder so we can find it again. And we're just going to go, I'm going to put an underscore at the beginning so that I find it. And we're just going to go bank transfer. Now, once I do that, anything I click is going to be recorded. We're going to go to transactions, financial, bank transfers. Now, typically I would cancel and I would record it without having that extra thing in there. We can always fix it. I just want to come in here. I'm going to click in here and put in my operating account. And over here, I'm going to put in my payroll account. Now, if I want to all I want the macro to do is to open this window, put those two accounts. I can put in the amount. I can put in a description. I might want to say payroll transfer. And I want to tab off of that. And I'm going to go tools, macro, and stop record. What I can do with that is, I don't even need to finish the thing, is add this to my homepage navigation pane by going add macro. Now I'm going to say bank transfer. And I'm actually going to add a function key. So I'm going to say that if I hit F12, and we're going to say that it's going to run that macro file. So we're going to find that macro file we just did. And I am going to put F12 in the description so that I know that it's F12 and done. Now, if I hit F12 on my keyboard, I'll probably open off write off documents again. I apparently love writing off documents. No, it opened and closed because in my macro, I recorded that. And that's not a bad thing for you to see. If you messed up during your macro, it would have been so much easier for the long term for me to stop and re-record it without that mistake. But it wasn't that bad. I got to the window and now I could put in that we're transferring, $50,000 and I can post that and I would be done. Now that's great if I'm doing one transfer once in a while, but there could be times we need to do a lot of updates. There is a free tool that's out there. A member of the GP community saw a need for writing something to make macros easier. If you go to the website that's here, I'll put it in the chat while we're during the session here. You want to go to this website, and I'll have a link to that all over my website and everywhere. But you can download this free replicator tool. So we're going to open this up. What this allows me to do, so remember when we started, we said we just emailed all our vendors and said, we need your bank information to start paying you with EFTs. We start getting those in and we're recording it in a spreadsheet. And now do we want to have someone sit there and data enter that all into GP? It's going to take a lot of time. So what I did was I recorded a macro that's going to go into purchasing, and it's going to go into cards, purchasing, and addresses. And it would open up this EFT bank window. And what it will do is it will fill that in. Now that's a lot of clicking and each vendor having to do that. So what I did instead was I created a spreadsheet of that information. So here's my EFT account information. So this is what we received back. Remember, we did that mass email. We just told everybody, hey, we want your account information. And they sent it back to us. So we're going to see what they sent back to us. And in there, I put a bunch of fake bank accounts and a routing number. So we've got that information in. We've got what address code it needs to go to, because your vendor can have 10 million different addresses. You want to include their address code. So we want the vendor ID, the address code, the routing number, and the account number. That's the minimum we need. I have the vendor name, but that's not required. Now what I did is I went in, and we're going to close this for just a second. And I'm going to go and I'm going to open up my replicator EFT information. So this is what it looked like when I started. I'll show you the before and then I'll show you the after. When I first did this, I recorded the macro that would type in the vendor ID. Then it clicked down EFT information. It typed in the routing number, tabbed, it typed in the account number, hit save, and then I stopped the record. So what I did was I took that macro file and I brought it into what's called the replicator. And when that comes up, you're going to get to see how easy it is to use. Now, is this something that's, you can do without programming 100%? Might it be confusing at the beginning? Yes. But is it going to save you a whole bunch of money? Yes. So it's a good thing to take a look at. So in here, when I recorded my macro, I was assigning it to this vendor, AB001, to their address code for remit and for the United States. And this was the routing number, and this was this. So what I did was I hit map columns, and then I went in here and just double clicked right on that field, and I'm replacing that with the vendor ID. And see how now it says vendor ID. Address code, double click, replace that with address code. Then I'm going to come down here, routing number, replace with routing number. A bank account, double click, and we're going to use account. Save. At that point, what I would do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit replicate. I created one and I took out some vendors that didn't exist on both of my test companies. So we're going to take a look at that one. Actually, let's just fix it. I'm just going to take out these two. These are I have two test computers and one of them doesn't have the ZZ vendors. The other ones are standard. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit replicate. Now, I only did a few records. We could do hundreds and bajillions. Don't go too cuckoo, but you could go cuckoo. And we're going to bring this in. I'm just going to go in here and leave it in the main window so I can find it. Okay. So replicated 12 times. Let's go ahead and open up GP. And we're going to go under, we want to go into addresses. And we're going to go tools, macro. Now, I happen to be running GP Power Tools. One of the other speakers that's part of DynamicsCon is Dave Musgrave. He has something called GP Power Tools, and it has a lot of extra features. So one of them is play fast for macros. So I'm going to do that because of time today. But you're going to get to see, you can run it without that, but it runs a lot quicker. So we're going to go ahead and hit open. Okay, so if I got any wacky errors, I messed something up. Okay, we'll see what I did. Okay, I know what I did. And this is actually not a bad thing. That's why I did the updated one. So the fact that I said please work is okay because I want you to see what I did wrong. And we'll get this, we're going to clear this out. And we're going to go back to none. It's not terrible. I always tell people, it's like, the Bob Ross or the painter guy, it's happy accidents and all that. Is when I did this macro, I realized before on my update, what I had done was my routing number dropped my leading zero. You notice that over there. So if we open up my updated, I had noticed that on the updated and forgot to go back and fix it on that original. So there can be wacky things that break your macro. It's a good idea to do a macro, like especially if you're updating a lot of information, do it into a test company. The reason you would do it into a test company is I'm mass updating a lot of records. Do a backup first because I wouldn't have the old information. It would just write over it. So now you'll see that I've got my routing number formatted as a text field with that leading zero. We're going to replicate again. See, if I had kept my eyes closed for a long time, I wouldn't have known. And you guys had been sitting at home going, she didn't even do the import correctly. So we're going to go ahead. I'm going to go ahead in here and we'll say yes. Okay. And we're going to go back over and we're going to hit tools, macro, play fast. I'm going to keep my eyes open and we're going to hope for the best that it worked. Okay. If one works, the rest will work, and it should go fast. So this is going to go through, and that's filling that in. The reason I like to do macros as much as possible, especially for things like this, is you see how easy it would have been for someone to even typo, forget a number and a routing number, forget a number and an account number. So we're trying to get that accurate data in. So we have it accurate out in Excel. We can do that. So there's going to be a lot of information about how to use that replicator on my website and on John Arnold, who designed the replicator's website. But I wanted you to get to see how easy it is. One of the things I didn't show you, and while this is running, I can mention, is on the side, you'll see behind the macro that's running that it said replace data table. So that other table, I formatted it as a table, and I was able, and it worked, I was able in Excel to hit replace table, and I can pull tables from whatever I have open that's a table in other Excel sheets. I have to have that other Excel sheet open, and it formatted as a table. And then I was able to use that as my data source. So it's on one worksheet. That's the way it works. I use this all the time. Other people that are presenting at the Dynamics Con, Aubrey Gilman, she uses it for all kinds of customers, but it's a great way to get data in. And it even works if you're a GP consultant listening to this, it even works for windows that don't usually allow imports, even using other expensive import tools. Some windows in GP just don't allow imports or aren't designed with nodes or preset connectors. This is a way to get around it. But if you're doing something huge like that, test, backups. I'm saying that for my own legal things of not telling you something crazy without a backup. Okay. This is a great way. I use it all the time to update customer credit limits and write-off settings, update vendors' payment priority. Let's say we did all of that, and now that we have EFT information, we want to use the vendor priority as a way to select them for payment. You're going to see that in a slide coming up. We also can use this as a way to auto-apply open AP and AR credits. If you're just going to hit auto-apply and you just want to go through and put in that payment number and hit apply, you can do that with that macro. So there's a lot of really cool ways to use it. It's gotten more and more advanced. But what I wanted you to see is we're starting with something that's inherent inside of GP that you might not know. So you're a GP user, you might not know to use macros. Now use those macros, do simple things, and then graduate to being a superhero by doing it to update information in bulk. Now, on our vendor options window, I like to say that they have a payment priority of EFT or ACH, or if they get paid by check, put CHK or wire, put a 3-digit thing. That is going to be on a standard GP payables vendor window. And we can update things on customers. We can update things on GL accounts. We can update things on items. For items, I have a customer that does a massive amount of customer items. So their customers use different color codes, different size and descriptions. And under sales, there's a thing called customer items. We do mass imports using the replicator for that window because it doesn't work with other import tools. So it can work for all over. I'm using something like payables and receivables today since that's pretty universal. But let's take a look at a vendor. And if we go under options, there's a field that a lot of people don't use called payment priority. What I've been doing is I use this and I say EFT or ACH, whatever you want to call it. But the reason I do that is in the newest versions of GP, when you're doing an edit payment batch window, it does have a little icon that vendor is getting paid by EFT. But if you're trying to do select, it's hard to find the vendors that are set up for EFT. So I use payment priority, and I'll show you what I mean. When we're doing select checks or build batch or whatever you call it, it's going to be this window. I will show you. We're going to go in here and we're going to say build payment batch. I can use that vendor payment priority as one of my filters. So I can come in, and this will work even if you're using a third-party tool like McCorma. They should pick up that. It's going to be part of standard reporting tools. So you're not losing functionality depending on how you're doing it. So I could say EFT, insert that filter, save it as a batch, all of that, and then filter and just pay everybody that's gone with EFT. So it's a great way to find and pay them. It also works on aging reports. So if we want to see all of our EFT vendors that we want to pay, it also is a column available with standard navigation lists. So if I want to look at vendors that have a payment, and I'm going to do something really quick. Let's pretend that everybody in one of my classes, one of my vendor classes signed up for EFTs. Wouldn't it be nice if every single vendor in one class signed up? We're just going to pretend they all did. EFT. We did a mass calling, we got through, and they all said yes. I can roll down the change from the class. That way we have a lot of vendors set up that way. I'm going to set up a navigation list that shows that option. So we're going to come in here, and I am going to save as EFT vendors. And then once I type in the name. This is the trick. With these navigation lists, once you name the navigation list, then you can add columns. So now that I named it, I'm going to come up here and I am going to, and I have slides coming up on this, but since I was ready to do it, I wanted to show you, and then we'll jump through those slides at the end. If I wanted to disable Business Analyzer, if I had that installed, it would run a little quicker. Columns, I'm going to say, I don't care about the phone, but I do care about the payment priority and the current balance. And we're going to click OK. And then at the top, my action pane, I'm going to go to modify, and I don't want to be able to delete them. We're going to remove that. I'm not going to inactivate or reactivate. That's not my job. I'm not going to mark them as temporary. I'm not going to do this. And I'm going to make this bigger. Okay. And we're going to click OK. Now I could modify all the way across. If I don't do POs, I might want to take POs out. If I do manual payments, I might want to add that. But let's just take a look at this. Because now from this window, you can see that I have vendors that are set up with payment priority of EFT. So I'm going to come in here and say payment priority is, or contains, depending on what you do, EFT. Run that. And then I can also say, and their balance is not equal to 0. Now, why do I want to do this instead of a smart list? Because it has actions. So watch what happens. We're going to do that. We're going to do that. Now I can save this, and I can run an aging just for that list of vendors. So I can come up here and do a reports, and I can do an aging right from here. So I can do an aging, or I can come up here and mass update all of the email settings. So maybe we have a new remittance we're going to use for EFTs. I can assign that, make sure it goes out as a PDF, and I can assign it in bulk to all of those vendors. I can come in, maybe until we get a payment priority, we're going to keep those vendors on hold. We are not paying you until we receive this, your 1099 information, and we receive this EFT document. I can mass apply hold, refresh, dump out these little yellow bars. If one of them failed, I could print out a little report to tell me why it failed, delete, and now they're on hold. Now, do I want to keep them on hold? No, but you get the idea of what I can do. This is what I just showed you. So I mentioned I was going to show you the slides. You can go in there, and if you hit customize, then you can do that. Now, the other thing that I wanted to show you is field level security. So field level security is also free. We can hide fields, we can disable buttons, and we can require passwords. So what we're going to do is go into GP. We're going to go into administration. Bear in mind, I have full access to every single window. I'm using a user that has full access. You may not see it, but it is there. It may need to be enabled inside of your registration, but it's a free tool. And I'm going to hide the EFT button. So what I'm going to do is show you what it looks like and how to enable it. So I have hide EFT right here. We're going to add one. And I'm going to do it real quick. And then I'll tell you how the other ones work. But just for time, we're just going to go AB EFT because I'm going to have to find it again. I have too many. I do these for all kinds of training. So we're going to say EFT hide. I'm going to hit the little lookup for product. And then over here, I'm going to hit Microsoft Dynamics GP. Now, I'm doing a very simple one today. You can do more complicated ones with passwords and all that. And I'll show you what I mean in the slides. But in here, we're going to go vendor address is what we're looking for. Vendor addresses, which I just saw. We're going to go in here. And now what we want to do is we want to take the bank button and we want to say hide. Now, I could put a password. I could disable. The disable will just gray it out. It won't kick in until I actually enable it. I could assign it to user, or I could assign it to a class of users. I'm going to just assign it to the user that I'm logged in as, and we're going to apply it. And then we're going to go back in that window and just check it out. The reason I mentioned that is that's a great way. You know, if you think about Thanos on Avengers, and you did that snap, people can very quickly mess up your data. And this is a way to protect your data. So you can't use Infinity Stones and delete all your data. So we're going to go into purchasing. And now that button is gone. So that's something that you can do with security, with that field level security. The other thing we can do is, I don't want someone to delete vendors on accident. We can do a field level security password for the delete button itself. So there's lots of ways that you can do that. I have a couple bonus tips, and I have time. I'm going to just show you real quick. In GP, you have the option for toolbars. If you right click on your toolbar, you can add different modules, and then you can say image and text, and you can show them across. But what's interesting is that if you rename them in your toolbar, it renames them throughout the system. So if the name of a window doesn't make sense to you, that's a great way to get around that. But thank you guys so much for attending my session today. I hope you learned a few tips to go from a GP user to a GP superhero. Be sure to join us for the rest of our sessions for DynamicsCon, and make sure next time to vote up a lot of GP content, because we enjoy including you guys in our wonderful event. So thank you so much. And here we go. Let's see what's going on in Q&A.
Good. Well, thanks everybody for joining us in the Q&A. I get to say welcome, and I can help watch for questions and moderate here. So I'm not sure if DynamicsCon kind of stole or tried to steal the superhero part, but glad to have Amber here and to tie right in. So so if you have some questions, I'll just mention, throw them in the chat here. And I didn't see too many come in, so I guess from some of the comments, I'll say thank you. I didn't see that replicator tool before, and some other comments around that. So that's an awesome tip and tool there.
Yeah, no, I actually had a macro tip on my website years ago, and John Arnold reached out to me. He had seen me at events and reached out to me and said, "You have a tip on doing a word mail merge and turning it into a macro," which is how I used to do it. And I saw in the Aubrey asked where my cape is. I should have worn it. I did buy a Wonder Woman apron I was going to wear, but I totally forgot to put that on. So anyways, what I was going to say is that John Arnold did that. And I did not show that you can do even things like multiple lines. He has a way to do multiple lines for that. So it's definitely worth checking out his website. Somebody mentioned in the chat that they couldn't download the Excel document. If you're having an issue with that, you can email me, just amber@trainingdynamo.com, and I'll forward you the file. There's a couple macros in the file to make the macros work, because he did some things in there. But definitely, Aubrey keeps saying squirrels because I have too many things going on. I'm trying to tell you where stuff is. But anyways, yeah. So if you can't get it on his website, I will get you the file copy. He does update it every so often, add some features, but I'll get that over to you so that you can download it.
All right. Well, thanks for sharing that. Yeah, if anybody has questions, I'll throw that out there. A reminder again. I'm happy to make sure to get those to Amber here. Yeah. We had lots of good comments going on in the session as well. So the EFT kind of tip for building the checks was good. Might be superhero powers if you could get vendors to switch that quickly, but
yeah, that'd be really nice. Yeah. One thing I'm just moving this over, so I won't see you for a second. I'm just checking if there's a question. I did want to make sure I do have a YouTube channel. So if you go to my website, I do have a link to my YouTube channel. You can subscribe. I have my workbooks, and I also am part of the Doug Scale Up. So I'm doing I love training on GP. I wish that this session was 5 hours long, so I could show you guys. I'm like, oh, I want to show them this. I want to show them that. So I'm trying to show you guys as many things as I can in the time we have, but definitely check out my website and my YouTube because I'm adding tips all the time.
All right, so Rich gave the option out there to throw any questions. I don't know if we're.
Oh no,
we'll take the challenge if it comes up.
Time. Yeah, something you have never been able to do in GP. Can I do this? I have a question. You know, I'm going to ask you, John, and I'll ask everybody else that's on the meeting. One of the things years ago I Googled. I'm trying to pull up my thing. So, John, you'll see if they ask a question, right? Because I have us up. I don't see the questions. You'll see them if they pop up.
Yep.
What I was going to say is, years ago, I Googled Great Plains GP years ago, and it came up that GP included macros. Like, it was what makes GP pretty cool. And what I was wondering is, does anybody know of any other ISV, or not ISV, ERP that does macros? Like, does BC do macros? Does anybody know?
Yeah, I saw you posted that. It made me think, but I don't know of any other ones that have it in there. So that is an interesting question if anybody else has a comment on that as well.
Yeah. So as a GP person and love GP, just know there are some really cool features because it is a really strong system. Definitely, like, I tried to show you guys some things that are just part of GP. Everything I showed today is built into GP without any add-on products. Like I covered the mail merging and going into Office and using those tools. And I wanted to show you that with what you already own, you have a system that you can be a superhero in. So as far as the Dynamics Con and me, I think we both just came down the same road of wanting to make GP fun with the GP superhero. But I have been the GP superhero for years. Like, when I started my company, you can see behind me, I love all my superhero stuff. I've been watching. I'm getting ready to watch the Snyder cut of Justice League this week, so getting excited about that.
Well, I'll throw one out there too, just kind of a comment to piggyback some of the macro stuff, because speaking of superheroes or capes, Leslie Vale, I think, was the first that I saw the advanced macro feature inside of GP. So certainly if we do those bigger kind of merged macros and are running those, I really like the tip where you can hide that window interaction. So if you're not familiar with that, there's some tips out there that I could help share too as well. But basically we can kind of turn off the flash of the screens by enabling an advanced mode in the DATA file. So again, nothing to add on, just takes a couple setting changes. So a nice add-on as well for that.
Yeah. And like I mentioned in the session, and I want to just make sure, I saw in the session, which was really exciting to me, is there were several people that know and love GP that didn't know about that macro replicator. So if you're watching this and you talk to your team members at your company, it's a great way for you to get data into GP, especially if there's a company who they don't own Integration Manager, or Integration Manager doesn't include the field, because the Integration Manager, they haven't updated to some of the newer fields, but you can use this to do that integration. I've also worked with companies, and I mentioned this in the session, that the window they're trying to integrate to is not part of, like, they use an import tool called Titanium GP, or it's not part of the regular Smart Connect without getting into building, craziness to make that work. So if you just need a quick import, that's a great way to do it. I've done it, countless times for customers, especially like during upgrades or go lives or data cleanup. I use it. I can't even remember how many times I use it. And Aubrey, I know, uses it all the time. Aubrey, shout out again to you. So shout out number 2. Belinda's on the call. I'll mention everybody. And this goes out to, so.
So you were talking about building payments in EFT. So the vendor kind of EFT and bank information is one that typically doesn't have a node. So that's a good one to use macros with as well. And
then I showed how to hide that button. One of the things that I want to make sure is that when you do EFTs, go through the whole process in your test company. I just finished recording the final videos for the payables course that I'm doing through the DUG Skill Up, or the Doug Skill Up If you check that out, I include how to set up EFT. But one of the things I noticed is one of the printouts when you finish your payment run includes routing and account numbers. So that I don't think every user needs to print that every time they run a payment run, because that is confidential information. So anytime you're talking about anything with EFTs, you want to be able to secure that information. So that's why I talked today about using field level security to lock that window. You can put a password, you can disable it, you can gray it out. There's a couple different options. It is in the system administrator. And sometimes I've noticed that it's not enabled in registration, even though you own it. So that's when you call your partner and say, hey, do I have to pay for this? You don't have to pay extra. They just literally have to enable it inside of registration.
All right. Awesome. Some bonus tips here in the live session. So thanks. Just kind of watching the chat. I don't see any other questions. Looks like Belinda has helped with some links to your site. So thanks, Belinda.
Thank you, Belinda.
And a song request, I think, from Belinda as well, but we'll pass on singing. That's only for the live karaoke event.
I did do karaoke at one of the last couple summits, so I wouldn't put it past me to do karaoke. But no, I think the thing that's exciting, I think, is that I'm really excited that we have GP content at DynamicsCon. Even if you talk to people that weren't able to attend live, let them know, because the numbers, when they see those numbers of GP users being part of this group, we're having the like at 6 o'clock Eastern tonight, we're having that Microsoft open like discussion talking about futures of different user groups and how Microsoft's getting involved. But we want Microsoft, we want the user groups to see that the GP community really wants to be involved. So the way they're going to see that is, number of views on these sessions, number of votes, number of attendees. So even if people can't watch it live, we're going to see the people watching it, and then that'll encourage the dynamic user group and everybody to invest in keeping these user groups for GP available.
Awesome. Yeah. So great plug there. Hope to have a lot of people joining us at that time as well.
Yeah.
I do see a question. Abra just asked, what's not enabled? Sorry, field level security, when you were talking about enabling in registration. Oh,
so in registration for GP, there is, I'm just going to check, and Abra's going to tell me I'm looking the wrong window, but that's okay. By the way, like it's such, like when you have multiple things, you make like the weirdest face in the camera. You're not looking, this is the window you're not looking at. So forgive me. So I'm just going to check out my registration. And I've noticed that in registration, there is, it is a module. It's listed as a module, even though it's just part of administration. It will be listed as a module for field level security. If that's not checked, you won't see the windows for enabling field level security. When you set up a field level security option, you have to then turn that one on. So you can either turn it on user by user, or people don't realize there's that field when you set up a new user called user class. And I've been in sessions and people go, oh no, classes aren't used for anything. And the truth is they are used for, you can restrict smart lists by class, and you can do field level security by class. So there are some features in GP that will use that field. So you could say everybody that's in administrator can see everything, but you can set up another one that's just a general default user class, and then they can't see the EFT button. Or you can create one that's payables manager. You can kind of break up your classes. So you can assign by user or by class, and it can be done per company. So some companies, they have access and some they don't.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, I think we're coming towards the end of our time here right now. I'm not sure if there's any other questions. I guess I can also make a cross promotion here. Maybe if you come at the same time tomorrow.
Here, I'll do it. I'll do it for you. You guys have enjoyed the wonderful moderation stylings of John, and you just wish it could flip and that I could be introducing the questions. You'll have the chance, because tomorrow at 2 p.m. John, what's your session about?
Talking about the GP roadmap, kind of what's been released and what's the cadence and what's coming up here. So we'll spend some time talking not so much about the new features, but kind of where GP is and the use of current technology with it.
Okay, Perfect. So I think that's going to be great. I think it's important for people to see in an event about GP, their options, and also reasons that, GP is a strong product and that you can get more and more out of it. If you invest in training and come to these kind of events, you can get more out of it. So there is some cool stuff out there with other ERPs, but GP is awesome. So don't let anybody tell you that it's not. So there's a million things you can do here in GP that you can't do anywhere else. And so keep getting stronger in what you do with GP. By the way, the worst thing I have, and you'll notice if you do try my training videos and you write a comment, I cannot exit for the life of me. Like I just start, I go welcome and I'm nice. And at the end, I just go, bleh, I trail out. So I will probably do that for this session and they'll have the recording and the person watching it on YouTube will go, she can't say goodbye for the life of her. So it's true. I cannot, I've had to re-record entire videos because the end of it, I just kind of went, goodbye. So,
but we just don't want to stop talking. We just want to keep going. So
yeah, no, it's exciting. Well, I know there's another session that's coming up after this. I will be in my booth. So if you go to the sponsors on the side, I'm allowed to talk about the fact that I am, because I sponsored my own session. That's how much I believe in this session and this event. So I am a gold sponsor. I have a booth. If you come over there, you can enter to win a GP Superhero Power Pack or prize pack. Behind me, I have my ready to go. I have my Funko. What are they? They're little Wonder Woman collectibles. If you guys enter, you can win those and some books. So I look forward to seeing you guys in the booth tomorrow. Make sure you come to John's session. And like I said, make sure people know about these recorded sessions because there's a lot that they can learn from DynamicsCon. See, goodbye. Okay.
All right. We did have one last question come in if we have a minute yet.
Yeah, we've got a minute.
So we had a question, can you set security level by GL account number?
You can. So the way to do security by GL account number is called account level security. In your registration, there is a checkbox for account level security. And there's quite a bit of setup for that to work. And just know, you'll want to make sure it's working correctly. It's under administration, setup, company. There is an account levels or account security to turn it on once you do the setup. If you go into the setup checklist, I think there is a whole section on account security. And you can do it by groups. You can set up organizational structures to say different people can have security to different accounts. It does take setup, and it's not something that in 2 seconds. I speak faster than anybody. I try my best to slow down in training, and I don't think I can train you it in 2 minutes.
Thanks for the quick run through there, Amber. I think we lost you again. So definitely a new way to kind of wrap up and say goodbye. I'll do one last thank you. We'll see if we can get Amber back for the last couple of seconds here. But again, thanks everybody for joining the session. There she is.
Okay, I'm just going to say goodbye because it's going to kick me out again. Okay.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye. Hope you have a great day. Thanks for joining, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye.